Let's be realistic. Most people are too afraid to tell you directly that they don't like you. Instead, they act friendly. Make empty compliments. Act overly polite. I've been there too. I thought someone was a friend. They were secretly hoping for my failure. It's painful. Here's the truth, if you don't recognize the signs, you'll end up wasting your time and energy on people who, deep down, can't stand you. So, let's cut through the BS and talk about the signs that someone dislikes you but is hiding it. You might not like what you hear. It's better to face the truth than to pretend that things are fine. They're always joking about your flaws. We all know that one person who loves to joke. Especially when the joke is on you. They'll pick at your quirks, your mistakes, your little imperfections. They do it with a smile, saying, "I'm just messing with you." It seems harmless at first. Let's not kid ourselves. These jokes are often more than just playful banter. They're calculated digs. Cleverly disguised as humor. Meant to chip away at yourself. I remember a time when I was close to someone who seemed to always have something to say about me. They would talk about how I dressed, the way I spoke, even the projects I was working on. At first, I laughed it off, thinking it was all in good fun. As time went on, I noticed a pattern. The jokes were always about my perceived weaknesses, never about my strengths. It wasn't long before I started second. I'm wondering if I'm the problem. If my flaws are as bad as they seem. Here's where things get controversial. People who joke about your flaws aren't doing it to help you. They're testing the waters to see how you react. I'm wondering if I'm the problem. If these flaws are as obvious as they seem. Here's where things get controversial. People who always joke about your flaws aren't doing it to be nice. They're testing the waters to see how much disrespect you'll take. It's a subtle form of manipulation. It's a way for them to show who's in charge while keeping you in your place. They're telling you, in no uncertain terms, that you're beneath them. And the most insidious part? They get away with it because we've been conditioned. You're told that if you can't take a joke, you're the problem. But let's change that script. I'm here to tell you that there's nothing wrong with standing up for yourself when a joke crosses the line. In fact, it's essential. You deserve to be around people who lift you up. Not those who knock you down just to get a cheap laugh. True friends don't need to point out your flaws to feel better about themselves. They celebrate your strengths and help you work through your weaknesses without making you the butt of the joke. I've seen it happen time and time again. People who don't speak up when others make jokes about them are in trouble. Jokes like that are a way of disrespecting you. It might start with a small comment. It can get worse over time. You might start to doubt yourself and question your worth. You might feel like you have to be sensitive. That's not true. I learned this the hard way. I realized that when I laughed along, I was giving them permission to keep making jokes. I was also disrespectful. I didn't realize it until I started pushing back and setting boundaries. I noticed a change in how they treated me and how I saw myself. I stopped letting their words define me and started owning my narrative. Here's my advice: the next time someone makes a joke at your expense, don't just laugh it off. Ask yourself if it's really funny or if there's something more going on. If there is, don't be afraid to call them out. It might be uncomfortable. It might even end the friendship. But your self-respect is worth far more than someone's misguided sense of humor. In the end, life's too short to surround yourself with people who can't see your value. If their idea of friendship is constantly pointing out your flaws, then it's time to find new friends. the ones who truly care about you will never need to put you down to feel good about themselves. So stand tall. Speak up and don't let anyone belittle you. Point 2. They give compliments that are really insults. We've all been there. Someone gives you a compliment. Instead of feeling good, you feel bad. It's the kind of compliment that makes you stop and think. Wait. Was that a compliment or an insult? Insult. Here's the harsh reality. Often, it's a bit of both. These backhanded compliments are a subtle, sneaky way for people to undermine you while pretending to be kind. I remember a time when I was working on a big project that I was incredibly proud of. After putting in countless hours of hard work, I finally shared it with a group of colleagues. One of them said something that really hurt me. You'll be met with a lot of disrespect. It's a subtle form of manipulation. It's a way for them to assert dominance while keeping you in your place. They're telling you, in no uncertain terms, that you're beneath them. And the most insidious part? They get away with it because we've been conditioned. Someone I thought was a supporter said with a smile, "Wow. This is actually pretty good for someone like you." I stood there, stunned. On the surface, it seemed like a compliment. Those last few words "for someone like you" hit me like a ton of bricks. What did that even mean? Was I not supposed to be capable of doing good work? That's the controversy here. These so-called supporters. They're showing you a compliment. They're really trying to control you. They're not meant to make you feel good. They're meant to keep you in your place. It's a power play. The person giving the compliment is showing that they're better than you, making you doubt your abilities. They're saying, "I see you trying. You'll never be as good as me." It's toxic. It's presented in a way that's hard to spot. Let's be real. People who give backhanded compliments are often insecure. They see your potential and your strengths. It scares them. So they use these sly little digs to keep you in your place. It's toxic. It's presented in a way that's hard to see. Let's be real, people who give backhanded compliments are often insecure. They see your potential and your strengths. It scares them. So they use these sly little comments to make you doubt yourself and stop you from succeeding. It's like they're patting you on the back while holding you down with their hand. And here's where it gets even more controversial: we've all done it at some point. Maybe not on purpose. We've all said things that were meant as compliments but ended up coming across as insults. Here's the important part: you don't have to accept this hidden hostility. You have the power to reject it and see it for what it really is, a reflection of their own insecurities. It's not a measure of your worth when someone says you're smarter than you look or this is good considering you're new at this. You don't have to accept it. Call it out for what it is. Even if it makes things awkward. If you don't, you're allowing them to dictate how you feel. You should never let others dictate how you see yourself. I've learned to recognize compliments for what they are, a mirror reflecting someone else's insecurities. When you see it that way, it loses its sting. Instead of taking it personally, you can almost laugh it off. Because at the end of the day, their words say more about them than they ever will about you. So here's what I do now, when I receive a backhanded compliment. I don't let it slide. I'll respond with something like, "Thanks. What do you mean by that?" It forces them to. Don't let others make you feel insulted. If someone says you're smarter than you look or that this is good considering you're new at this, don't just accept it. Point out the insult in their words. Often, this will make them uncomfortable. They'll realize that you won't play their game. They'll quickly change their attitude. Remember, don't let others' negative comments define you. Don't let others make you feel insecure. If someone says you're smarter than you look or that you're doing well for being new, Don't believe it. Call it out for what it is. Even if it makes things awkward. If you don't, you're allowing them to control how you feel. Remember this, your worth isn't up for debate. Compliments should lift you up, not tear you down. If someone's words leave you questioning yourself, it's time to question their intentions. Life is too short to waste on people who can't genuinely celebrate your successes. Surround yourself with those who see your value and aren't afraid to let you know it without any strings attached. Also, if they subtly exclude you from plans, it stings the most. Like realizing that your so-called friends subtly exclude you from plans, they might accidentally forget to invite you to a dinner, party, weekend getaway. They'll say it was an oversight, that it was a last-minute thing, that it's a subtle way of making you feel unimportant. Let's be real. These aren't accidents, this is social exclusion in its sneakiest form. It's a clear sign that you're not as valued as you think. I've been on the receiving end of this too many times. I remember checking my. Don't just accept what someone says about you. If someone says you're smarter than you look or that it's good that you're new, don't just believe them. Point out that it's not true. Even if it makes things awkward. If you don't, you're letting them control how you think. One weekend, I got a phone call. I saw pictures of a group of friends having a great time at an event I would have loved to attend. The kicker was that not a single person had mentioned it to me before. When I casually brought it up later, they had lots of excuses. Oh, we thought you were busy. It was such a last. Don't let others make you feel insecure. If someone says you're smarter than you look or that this is good considering you're new, don't just agree. Point out what they're saying is wrong. Even if it makes things awkward. If you don't, they'll continue to make you feel insecure. Deep down, I knew the truth. If they wanted me there, they would have made sure I knew about it. Here's where the controversy comes in. This kind of exclusion isn't just thoughtlessness, it's deliberate. It's a way of sending a message without saying a word. They don't want you there. They don't have the guts to tell you to your face. Instead, they hope you'll just fade out of the group quietly without causing a scene. It's passive, it's cowardly. It's also common. People don't talk about it because it's easier to pretend it's not happening. It's easier to accept the excuses and convince yourself that it really was just a mistake than to face the painful truth that you're being pushed out. Here's the thing, if you keep accepting those excuses, you're giving them permission to keep excluding you. You're letting them decide your place in their lives. Rather than taking control of your own story. That I had to learn this the hard way. For a while, I kept quiet, letting those accidental exclusions slide, hoping that maybe next time I'd be included. But then I realized that by staying silent, I was allowing myself to be treated as an afterthought. Then so I did something controversial. I started calling them out on it. I'd say, "Hey, I saw you guys went out last weekend. Why didn't anyone invite me?" Don't let others make you feel inferior just because they say you're smarter than you look or that it's good that you're new. Don't just accept it. Point out that it's not true. Even if it makes things awkward. If you don't, you're letting them control the way you think about yourself. It wasn't easy. It definitely made things awkward. It also made them face their behavior. Guess what? The way things were done changed. Some people got defensive. Others tried to make up for it. The bottom line was clear: I wasn't going to let them exclude me without a fight. Here's the deep message. If people want you in their lives, they'll make an effort to include you. Even if the plan is made at the last minute. If they don't, then it's time to rethink the value of that relationship. You deserve to be around people who don't make you feel like you're always chasing their approval or attention. True friends don't forget to invite you. They make sure you're there because they genuinely enjoy your company. So, if you find yourself being subtly excluded from plans, don't just brush it off. Confront it. Ask the hard questions. Be prepared for the answers. Even if they're not what you want to hear, because at the end of the day, it's better to know where you truly stand than to be left wondering why you were left out again. Remember, you're not a backup option. You're a priority. Surround yourself with people who treat you like 1.4, they're only busy when it comes to you. We've all heard it before, I'm so busy these days. Sorry. I'm sorry. I can't meet up right now. It's the perfect excuse. But what happens when you start noticing a pattern? They're always available for others, posting pictures of their outings, catching up with mutual friends, but when it comes to you, suddenly they're swamped. Here's the cold hard truth, they're not too busy. They're just too busy for you. I've been in that frustrating situation many times. I remember reaching out to a friend I used to be close with, trying to set up a time to catch up. Every time I suggested something, they'd have an excuse: I'm working late, I've got a lot on my plate, maybe next week. Meanwhile, I'd see them hanging out with other people, having a great time, somehow always finding a way to make time for everyone except me. It took me a long time to realize that they were sending a clear message: I wasn't a priority in their life anymore. Here's where the controversy comes in. We've been taught to see busy as a valid reason to be ignored, but let's be real, people make time for what and who they care about. If they're always busy around you, it's not about their schedule. It's about their priorities, and that's hard to accept because it makes you confront they're just too busy for you. I've been in that frustrating situation many times. I remember reaching out to a friend I used to be close with, trying to set up a time to catch up. Every time I suggested something, they had an excuse: I'm working late, I've got a lot on my plate, or maybe next week. The reality is that they might not care about you as much as you care about them. The harsh reality is that busy is often a polite way of saying, I don't want to spend time with you. It's easier for them to blame it on their schedule than to admit that they're choosing not to include you in their life. It's passive-aggressive. They don't want to deal with the truth. They want to keep you interested, not in a relationship with you. I've been on both sides of this. There were times when I was the one making excuses because I didn't want to be in a relationship. I've been in that situation many times. I remember trying to set up a time to catch up with a friend. Every time I suggested a time, they had an excuse. They said they were working late, had a lot on their plate, that we could meet next week. I learned that it's better to be honest, even if it's uncomfortable, than to string someone along with excuses. When I finally called out my friend on always being busy, the conversation was awkward. It was necessary. This made me realize that I needed to focus on relationships where I was appreciated. Here's the important message: your time is valuable. So is your energy. Don't waste it on people who don't make time for you. If someone is always busy, it's time to rethink the relationship. The relationship you deserve to be around people who are excited to see you, who make an effort to include you in their lives, not just when it's convenient for them, because they genuinely enjoy your company. It's important to recognize that people change. So do relationships. Sometimes we hold on to people out of fear. They might be working late, busy, afraid of being alone, even if they've moved on. It's good to let go and realize you deserve better. It's not about being needy, it's about valuing yourself enough to walk away from those who don't value you. 5. They avoid physical contact. Contact like the plague. Let's talk about the obvious problem: physical contact. Rather, the lack of it. We're not just talking about romantic relationships here. Physical contact is a basic human interaction. A way of connecting and building trust. So what does it mean when someone goes out of their way to avoid even the most casual touch? The answer isn't pretty. They're sending a clear signal that they're uncomfortable around you. It's time to pay attention. That I once had a colleague who seemed to recoil every time I reached out for a handshake or a friendly pat on the back. At first, I thought I was imagining things. Then I noticed it wasn't just me. They were warm and affectionate with everyone else. Not with me. It wasn't long before I realized that their avoidance of physical contact was more than just a habit. It was a deliberate effort to keep me at a distance. Here's the controversial part: physical contact is a normal part of human interaction. When someone avoids it, it can mean that they're not comfortable or not connected to you. Some people just aren't touchy. That's okay. If they only hug people they don't know, not you, it might be a sign that something's wrong. They might not say it. Their body language shows it. We've all been there. We've all been there. Maybe you've avoided a handshake or leaned back when someone got too close because you weren't feeling it. Or maybe you've been on the receiving end, wondering why someone always flinches when you're around. It's uncomfortable. Awkward. It often indicates that the relationship isn't as strong as you'd like. Here's the deeper truth: physical contact is a fundamental part of human connection. It's how we show trust, warmth, empathy. When someone avoids physical contact with you, they're not just avoiding touch, they're avoiding a deeper connection. Closeness, intimacy, vulnerability. They're keeping you at a distance, both physically and emotionally. That's a clear sign that there's an underlying problem in the relationship. I've learned to pay attention to these signs. Even when it's hard to understand what they mean, there was a time when pay attention to these signs of closeness. Intimacy, vulnerability. Don't ignore them, even if it's hard to accept what they mean. I ignored the signs for a long time. I thought that if someone doesn't want to get close, it's just a personality thing. I realized that it was about me and our relationship. When I finally confronted the situation, it led to some tough conversations. In some cases, it led to the end of the relationship. It also freed me from the frustration of wondering why things felt off. So, here's the message: don't ignore the signs when someone avoids physical contact with you. It's more than just a preference. It's a statement about their level of comfort and connection. If you notice this pattern, don't be afraid to address it. It might lead to a deeper understanding. It might reveal that the relationship isn't as solid as you thought. Either way, it's better to confront the truth than to live in denial. You deserve relationships where physical contact isn't something to be avoided. Something that happens naturally and comfortably. Whether it's a friendly hug, a handshake, just sitting close without feeling awkward. These small gestures build trust and connection. If someone consistently avoids them, it's a sign that something's not right. Don't be afraid to ask the tough questions and, if necessary, make the tough decisions. Life's too short to be surrounded by people who keep you at a distance. Both literally and figuratively. Point 6, they disappear when you need support. Let's get real, nothing reveals the true nature of a relationship like a crisis when the going gets tough. You find out who your real friends are. So what does it say about someone when they vanish the moment you need the most? It's not just a sign of flakiness. It's a neon warning that they're not as invested in you as you might have. Clues like this are hard to ignore. Let's be real. When someone just disappears when you're going through a tough time, it's not just painful. It's a betrayal. I learned this the hard way during a really tough time in my life. I was dealing with a huge personal problem. Something that really shook me to my core. I thought my close friends would support me. Even if it was just a text or a quick call, but they didn't. They had every excuse that I'm so swamped at work, sorry. I'm just really busy right now. Now I'll check in with you later, spoiler alert, they never did. Here's where it gets controversial. People love to talk about how they'll always be there for you, but when push comes to shove, many of them are only around for the good times. They'll party with you, laugh with you, enjoy the important moments in your life, but when things get tough, they're nowhere to be found. It's easier for them to leave you than to deal with your pain or discomfort. They don't want to be involved in your problems because deep down, they don't care enough to be there when it counts, and let's be honest. They're brutally honest. True support isn't about convenience. It's about being there when it's hard, when it's uncomfortable, when it's the last thing you want to do. The people who disappear when you need them most aren't just being inconsiderate. They're showing you exactly where you stand in the relationship. Their life. They're saying, without words, your problems aren't worth my time. I remember feeling absolutely devastated when I realized that the people I'd been there for in the past, during their breakups, their family dramas, their career setbacks, couldn't be bothered to return the favor. It was a wake-up call. Closeness, intimacy, vulnerability. They're keeping you at a distance, both literally and figuratively. This shows there's an underlying issue in the relationship. I've learned to pay attention to these signs, even when it's hard to understand what they mean. There was a time when a call, not a pleasant one, but it was also a lesson I needed to learn. Not everyone who smiles in your face is truly on your side. Here's the important message: support is the basis of any meaningful relationship. It's easy to be around when everything's going well. The real test of a relationship is how people respond when things fall apart. If someone leaves you when you need them, it's not just a sign of their lack of loyalty. It's a sign that they were never truly present in your life. Don't let their absence make you bitter. Let it make you better. Use it as a way to filter out the people who don't deserve a place in your life. The ones who stick around, who check in, who show up even when it's inconvenient for them. Those are the people who truly matter. Those are the relationships you should nurture and cherish. In the end, life is too short to invest in fair-weather friends. Surround yourself with people who will stand by you in the storm, not just bask in the sunshine. Because when you find those rare individuals who stick around when the chips are down, you found something. You should focus on building and maintaining these relationships. Life is short. Don't invest in friends who only want to see you when things are going well. Instead, look for those who will support you through hard times. When you find these people, hold on to them tightly. If someone in your life is always gossiping about you, it's a sign that they don't respect you. Gossip can destroy relationships. It spreads quickly and can ruin someone's reputation. Gossip is never as innocent as people make it out to be. Don't let people who don't respect you run your life. If someone you think is a friend talks about you behind your back, they're not just sharing a story. They're actively harming your trust, reputation, relationship. Let's be real, when they gossip about you, it's a clear sign that they don't respect you, no matter how friendly they act to your face. I've been the subject of gossip before. Let me tell you, it's one of the most. Get a friend talking behind your back isn't just sharing a story, they're actively harming your trust, reputation, relationship. And let's be real, when they gossip about you, it's a clear sign that they don't respect you, no matter how friendly they act. I've been the subject of gossip before. Let me tell you, it's one of the most painful experiences. There was a time when I confided in someone I thought was a close friend about a personal issue I needed to vent to. I trusted this person to keep it between us. Within days, details of that conversation started circulating. Twisted and exaggerated. It was like a game of telephone. Except the message wasn't just getting lost, it was being weaponized against me. The person I trusted had turned my vulnerability into entertainment for others. Here's the controversial truth: people who gossip about you aren't just talking about you. They're trying to get power over you. Gossip is a way for them to make themselves look better than you and make you look worse without having to talk to you directly. It's cowardly, manipulative, toxic. They're not just damaging your reputation. They're damaging the very foundation of trust that any real relationship is built on. And let's get one thing straight: people who gossip about others to you will gossip about you to others. It's a pattern. Not a one-time thing that I've seen this happen so many times. Someone who loves to gossip about others suddenly stops when they're with you. I bet they're probably gossiping about you when you're not around. It's a very bad betrayal because it's done secretly. You don't get a chance to defend yourself or know what's being said. Now, here's where it was really personal. I remember confronting the friend who gossiped about me. I expected some sort of apology or at least an explanation. Instead, they acted like it was no big deal, brushing it off as just a bit of harmless talk. Here's the thing: gossip is never harmless. It's a betrayal. Plain and simple. It says far more about the person spreading it than it does about the person it's about.